So our approach is more on the spectrum agnostic caliber where we could work with CBRS, but we are really empowering spectrum holders, and we call them in our orchestration layer spectrum donors, where anybody that is able to provide spectrum, irrelevant of the frequency or whatever, bring it to our platform and we will allow you to monetize on that.
Whether it's buy our hardware, or whether it's like build the network with us and for us. I mean, that's kind of what DePIN is about, right? Is the inclusivity and the kind of shared ownership of the assets in the network that you're building. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me here today. I saw on Twitter and on your blog that Karrier One had just acquired Cellular Spectrum in Canada. So, tell us what that means for maybe our listeners that don't know much about the telecom industry. Like, what is Cellular Spectrum? Why'd you acquire it? And how's it going to be impactful for your business?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. And we're super excited with this acquisition because it allows us to participate in the big boys club as becoming a mobile network operator and not as a mobile virtual network operator.
Right.
Which there's a huge distinction in the industry in order to be able to communicate with other MNOs, the mobile network operators, and sign agreements with them and be part of what we call the GSMA, which is the Global System for Mobile Communications Consortium. So that allows us to be able to dabble in that space just like the other big boys, but actually helping them grow their networks using DePIN and all that infrastructure that we're deploying.
For sure. It's like you have a seat at the table now, right? You own the land versus just renting the apartment that sits on the land. Right?
Exactly. And you're also seeing in the industry, there's a huge difference. And the delta between being an MNO and MVNO in terms of security, infrastructure, quality. So now you've elevated that status to something that they can talk the same language and we can communicate, as another MNO player, helping them solve some of the rural remote area infrastructure in-building coverage issues, which we all know is a big problem with 5G and next G technologies that are rolling out.
Right. And for building a useful cellular network, are you a fan of, obviously a fan of owning your own spectrum, but are you a fan of the CBRS radio approach, the Wi-Fi offload approach? Like, these are two approaches that I've heard of in DY, right? Taken by other players, Helium or XNet. So where would you say you fall on that spectrum? Maybe if owning your own spectrum wasn't an option, like, would you go the CBRS offload route or the Wi-Fi offload route, or both?
They're all valid routes and paths. However, they're all very limited geographically to North America and specifically the U.S. Mm-hmm. CBRS is a bit of an anomaly to the U.S. It's something that doesn't exist in the rest of the world. So in order to have like a global conquering approach, there's no way you can just rely on CBRS. That will only get you within the United States. So our approach is more on the spectrum agnostic caliber where we could work with CBRS, but we are really empowering spectrum holders, and we call them in our orchestration layer spectrum donors, where anybody that is able to provide spectrum, irrelevant of the frequency or whatever, bring it to our platform and we will allow you to monetize on that. So for example, a perfect place is New York City. You're downtown Manhattan and then you go to an underground parking. Well, guess what? You lose all your access to telephony, which is a big problem because if you think 911 public safety, that you're out of coverage just because you're in a parking lot downtown Manhattan. And now we're able to allow an operator that owns some of this spectrum to be to deploy, to donate the spectrum to the platform and monetize some money back so that their customers can have a better in-building coverage experience in a downtown parking lot. And then the Wi-Fi offload challenge, while Wi-Fi is a great idea and it's used a lot in arenas and all that, it's very limited in range. And that's a problem. And that's why, you go to hotels and then congestion happens, it's open frequency. So this is kind of where the challenge is, that we try to stay away from that and build more of a carrier grade network.
For sure. And it sounds like Karrier One's taking a very inclusive approach, kind of like spectrum agnostic, hardware agnostic.
Correct.
Even as well, just whatever can get the gigabytes from point A to point B, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously we have to pick our partners because we want to make that experience as seamless as possible. So like a zero touch provisioning, you plug it in and you're able to monetize without having to configure a device that we haven't played around with or tested in our labs.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of partners and people you all work with, I saw on Twitter LongFi was deploying some of your hardware. So I've known those guys for a while. Think very highly of them. Some of the most kind of professional elite DY deployers, I would say, that are out there. How do you go about cultivating and then also growing a community of deployers and supply side kind of contributors as a DePIN project?
Yeah, it's selective, I guess, is keeping it limited, tight, I think is key. But to your point, everybody's eager to, this is revolutionary. Like we're at the cusp. This is kind of like the internet, how it was, 25 years ago, when I remember I used to get these AOL CDs and dial-up internet. And I mean, I'm aging myself, but this is how it was. So we're at this cusp where every supplier is actually eager to participate and offer and play in that sandbox with us, versus going to some of these old school, bigger companies that are already established, already selling to tier one operators that have no interest in actually dabbling in the space. And you probably heard of Open RAN, for example, where the big manufacturers actually tried to slow down the process, and then they realized if you can't beat them, join them, sort of thing, right? So the new approach with a lot of these hardware suppliers and deployers is that it's an inclusive community naturally, and they want to belong to something that will be revolutionary to help connecting lives, because that's what we're really doing at the end of the day.
Right. So there's an element of join us as we build the future together, kind of like exciting, almost visionary sales pitch from you to them in terms of like whether it's buy our hardware or whether it's like build the network with us and for us. That's kind of what DePIN is about, right? Is the inclusivity and the kind of shared ownership of the assets in the network that you're building. Creating
infrastructure equity and being part of that shared and circular economy that, everybody can definitely agree on and see the potential of connecting. I mean, 1/3 of the world's population is not connected for a reason till today. And this is a way to help mitigate that and get us all connected.
100%. Well, that's all I've got for you today, but thanks very much for joining me.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Proof of Coverage podcast. We post new episodes Mondays and Wednesdays, interviewing the best DePIN and crypto founders out there. If you like this episode, follow us on Twitter @CoverageProved and all other platforms, including YouTube and Spotify, at Proof of Coverage Podcast. Thank you.